All right, let's just jump right into it. So, the first thing we're going to go over is the overall strategy that you're going to use. So, I have what I like to call a content funnel. Most people are doing social media wrong right now and not creating the right type of content to actually get clients. And that's because they're just pushing their offer out. They're like, hey, sign up for me as your realtor, or come to my dental clinic, etc. On that side. Those posts don't do well. They're not organic, they're not meant to get views. What you need to do is create a content funnel. And if you know about like website design, one of the big things that you do for the web is you're creating a funnel for your website. So you're creating an ideal, path for them to actually get to a conversion. And this is what you're going to have to do with your content too at the same time. So, and majority of people aren't doing this. And this is really the only reason why I've been successful, been able to grow 370,000 followers and, a 3-year period, constantly growing brand deals. And even, the whole reason why you're on this is because the content funnel actually works. So let's just take a look at the first part. I love Miro, so we're going to draw this out as much as possible. And it really starts at the top. And the top of the funnel is the content that gets the most amount of views. And this is what everybody is really lacking on their side because they skip to the bottom of the funnel. So for me, and I'm going to use myself as an example and then show you how it can work for your business or your offering or anything that you're doing. For me, it's React content. So React content is very low effort for me. It gets an absolute ton of views. And the first React video I did got 1.7 million views. And this works for any kind of business type, and it doesn't necessarily have to be React either. It has to be related to your industry. You can't just, react to a seal diving off a boat if you're selling insurance. It's not going to work that way. You basically want to do either React or news to give you some type of authority for it. So news is a lot easier to do, and React and news is kind of the same thing. But news, let's say you're a realtor and the mortgage rates update, etc. That's some type of news that you could react to, and it works for both video and static post content. So really easy to do. For me, I say 2 sentences at the start. Have a video of me eating popcorn. I'll give you a nice little hint. I don't eat popcorn every single time. It's pre-recorded. I know that kind of ruins it, but it's simple. And then 2 sentences at the end with some kind of a call to action. Because one of the things that I found out from my popcorn videos is, I go out in the world, go to events and stuff, and had a bunch of people come up to me where they're like, you know what, I recognize you. I've seen you before. I've definitely seen you on my feed. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I do AI tool reviews and, I eat popcorn, etc. And they're like, that's it. You're the guy who eats popcorn. So before they know me as Matt Farmer AI, they know me as the guy who eats popcorn. So you're not only funneling the actual people to conversions, but you're funneling them to knowing your brand itself. So the React is the very top of the funnel. This stuff gets the most amount of views. Of course, if you don't want to do React content, completely fine. All you have to do is do posts about news, and naturally news works very well for posts, and it's always coming out. There's always different things you can react to on the news side. You could do it with static images and build full AI systems around it to get the most amount of viewers into your actual funnel itself, your content funnel, and then eventually to your website. The next one that I do is listicle. So what's a listicle? This is a direct response marketing, affiliate marketing, bread and butter to some extent. Everybody loves listicles. I find myself watching listicles all the time, even if I don't like the subject, like about knitting or something that it just, it's not even relevant to me, but naturally the human brain wants to see to the end. So this is content where you're just listing off like, hey, here's the top 5 things to do before selling your house. For me, for my example, I'm doing AI tools, but this works across every type of business and nobody's leveraging this type of content. Everybody wants to see what those top 5 things are. This can also be done as a post or as a video. So a post would just have an image and then the list items to it. Listicles work extremely well with human psychology. It's not, it's not a crazy amount of authority building, but it is too at the same time. They get a lot of views. So we have React and News at the very top. These are thankfully, the ones at the top are the easiest content to create. And then as we go down, it actually gets harder to create that content. But you're actually most likely playing in hard mode right now. You're likely doing the bottom of the funnel itself. And of course, these funnel steps can be changed. It doesn't have to, like, you don't have to do listicles. There's things that can that you could do other than listicles. You don't necessarily need to do a listicle in order to get an absolute ton of views. This is just one of the methods that I've proven over and over again. I did them at the end of the year and I got millions of views, but it works with everything. You could be selling dog food and it's like, here's the top 5 toxins in dog food. And you start to build authority around that. It's very easy for AI to generate all the content for actual listicles. And most likely, because for the ad for this, I did an actual listicle. I pushed people through to the webinar at the end of it. And of course, I only targeted, like, the call to action was at the end of the listicle itself. If you don't start it out like, hey, buy my stuff, and then go over, here's the top 5, toxins in dog food, or here's the top 5 things that people do wrong when they sell their home, or, in these listicles, you could make hundreds of them. There's a million things that you could cover for every single industry. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant, if you're a marketing agency, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be selling products. And basically, you're creating that listicle. It's great content. It goes extremely viral on social media. People like it. People click it. And then basically after that, what I do, and I'll explain why we're doing it this way after I go through all the steps. So the next one we do after that is I'm typically doing my AI tool reviews. So my next level of funnel, and this one I'm going to color it different because it's, and we'll get to why it's being colored different. But this is me basically, reviewing AI tools, specifically talking about a certain topic. So this is really the biggest authority piece, and it's really to kind of build the highest level of authority. Would you trust an accountant who just you see a bunch of listicles or news from? Not necessarily, but if they're talking about certain case studies, certain topics specifically, this could be topic specific on your side that has to do with your business. Whether it's, let's say if you're a marketing agency and there's a new Facebook Andromeda update and you do a post specifically about that, like, hey, here's what I would do for it, or here's everything about it, how we're reacting to it, etc. The next one after that, and this is also building authority too at the same time, is I'm doing guides. So the next one is basically pushing them to more kind of step-by-step training programs where you're going through and you're kind of pushing them through how to get to some kind of result. The AI tool reviews is just talking about the AI tools themselves. The guides are stuff like when I do, how to make a music video with AI, which does extremely well. And it shows a lot of authority and knowledge. It's definitely kind of up there. Potentially, you could even put it above AI tool reviews, but that's really the next step, doing some kind of guide and authority. And these ones are somewhat interchangeable. And then we have the very last one, which is the content that everybody gets stuck in, and they spend all their time doing this, and it doesn't actually work well if you're just going to create this content, which you could call direct response. Let's spell it right. So direct response is buy my shit, purchase what I am selling you. So for me, a direct response is the ad to get to my web class or my webinar, or hey, buy Cloud37 or whatever service that I have or whatever service you have. A lot of companies, they create posts around that where it's just like, hey, buy my stuff. And they're great. This is definitely, you need every single part of the funnel to be successful. So without every single part of the funnel, you cannot be successful. Well, you can still if you're lucky, but your odds are a lot lower. This funnel gives you an advantage. So if we go down the funnel again, we have React and news content. This is meant to get eyeballs. As many people as possible starting to see you, starting to like your posts. The next one we have is listicle. So listicles are, easy to create content. It uses psychology. It's starting to build that authority, starting to push them through. A lot of times I'll use the layers under it to feed these listicles. Like if I do some very successful, I find the best AI tool reviews and I'll do some kind of a roundup with a listicle, and it works extremely well for it. So you're getting a lot more views on the actual content itself. You're able to use all the methods with all of these like hooks, etc., that get people to directly interact with it. Then we got AI tool reviews. This is where you're really building authority and they start to follow you and they're like, okay, this is, or not even start to follow you, but start to be a fan or start to get authority, from you, where they're like, okay, this person definitely knows what they're talking about. Because, I have an example for this where we worked with an insurance agent and he told us about like high net worth life insurance. And after hearing him explain it, I'm like, well, if I'm ever buying that, because he's so knowledgeable in it and he has that authority, I'm definitely going with this guy. Next, we have guides, which is kind of more in depth, getting them some kind of result, and then direct response. And here's the problem. And this is why you can't just do one part of the actual funnel itself. Let's say, for example, if you only did the direct response ads, the biggest issue is you'll never get any eyeballs on it. They're getting very few amount of likes and anything, any kind of distribution. The platforms knows they're not natural content. No one's actually going to like this type of content. And the issue is, if you just do the top type of content, you could build a brand with millions of views that has zero value. And I've seen it countless times where it's like, those videos where it's like just quotes and stuff like that. That's not actually, you're not actually pushing them into your product. So what's the point? Yeah, you're getting views and followers and probably more followers than I have, but they're not actually converting to clients. So is that really going to help you in the end? Maybe, both of these can have their advantage if you're successful in either one. But how the algorithm works, and think of it, when you go on YouTube or when you go on Facebook or Instagram, one of the biggest things that happens is if you ever like a post, you notice that you instantly start getting all of that person's content. All of their content starts to flow through to you. It's basically signaling the avatar signaling the algorithm that you're interested in that topic and in that person. So you're going to get more on that topic and more on that person. And that's what you're doing with these top ones. And it has somewhat of a waterfall effect to it. So one of the big things is, as you're creating this content, the views actually start to go up on all of your other videos because now you're in people's algorithms. So, you build this, all these people that are showing interest, they go to the next step, they go to the next step. You're filtering them down because one step always has less viewership than the other step for it. So basically with this one, you could see, we're at the bottom. If we just did a direct response ad without the top part, it wouldn't get many views. But because this top part is getting views, it's actually going to feed your lower down videos, which is what you want to have happen. So for example, if you're gaining millions of followers, getting people through all of these steps, and then you do a post that's some kind of an offer, it's not going to be as many as your React or your listicles, but you're still going to get a baseline more. It won't just be your mother liking the post or, yourself liking the post. You'll see that you get tens of thousands of views. Your baseline is going to go up for it. So that's what you want to do, is basically create this funnel for yourself. And this is the main strategy that's been successful for me. And this is so one of the big parts for this is, once we realize what the strategy is, because if we're going to run forward without a strategy, we'll just run around in circles. But now that we know what the strategy is and what we have to create, we can make AI agents to make all of these steps a lot more easy, a lot more manageable for you. So I have it right now, so AI can do all of these steps for me. So every single step you see in this funnel, my agents are able to create posts for this, which does 90% of the work. So yeah, you're basically pushing people down through your funnel of content. This is going to, the top part is going to start to get you eyeballs. The second part is going to start to build authority, because if you just do a direct response ad, like, hey, buy my shoes or buy my shirt, and then you're some kind of a shirt expert and you display that and all of these other steps, you're going to get significantly more views and more sales. So yeah, what we're doing is we're basically creating AI agents that are going to take care of all the steps for this. We're creating an assembly line, and it does honestly 90 to 95% of the work. The agents that I've designed are made to do static content, so like image posts and the text with them and everything else. Right now, it's one of the biggest opportunities of not having to have your face on camera. As much as I have my face on camera, and that helps, and you can have these systems generate scripts and everything else. Facebook and Instagram are organic rocket ships right now. So it used to be TikTok. TikTok was one of the best ways that you could grow organically without having an audience or having a base audience for it. Now we're seeing it switch to Facebook, believe it or not. And something like 2 billion people per month use Facebook, or some crazy metric like that. So if you're like, oh, my demographic isn't there, they don't use Facebook. Yeah, I guarantee some of those people are there. I could promise you there's enough users that pretty much everybody is using it, even if it's not your exact person. And same with, Instagram. If they don't use Facebook, they typically use Instagram. So the next step is going to be just going over what the assembly line is so you understand it. And then I'm going to show you how to use all the tools in my expert studio so you could blast out these posts and do 90% of the work. It used to take me hours, honestly, 2 to 3 hours to create posts. I would go off, write the script, do the research, do everything that's required, write the post text, figure out what the hashtags are going to be for it, spend a bunch of time on hooks. Now, even with paid sponsorships that I get from absolutely crazy companies, like some of the trillion-dollar companies of the world who sponsor me, I'm having AI write the sponsorships for them, and they can't tell because it's trained properly. When you put enough effort into agents, they no longer sound like humans. They no longer sound like robots. They start to sound like humans. Everybody's seen that horrible AI slop content where it's like revolutionary. This game changer is doing this. No, that's not what we're creating here. This is going to give you a good base. Although sometimes AI sounding stuff does really well on social media. But step one is really think of, what do I want my content funnel to be? And you don't have to select every single one. So you can just pick a couple of them. You could basically just do React/news, or you could do, something like guides or your authority pieces and your direct response. You don't have to do listicles. I recommend doing listicles. They're probably one of the easiest ones to do that you'll get the best results from. And you could put your call to action at the end of it. For news, it doesn't always make sense to put your direct response at the very end, where it's like, you react to something and you're like, hey, sign up for my webinar, because there's no authority built there. But you're starting to build authority at this point of listicle, and you could start to put what your call to action is in it. But step number one, let's grow you an audience. Let's come up with a strategy. I want you to pick at least one at each level that you want to create, that you're going to use for the next agents. If you need more ideas for it, I could go through it for days. There's no business that doesn't apply to these buckets. Well, I'm sure somebody will stump me at some point, but we even did it live on one of our last web classes where I brought somebody randomly and he's like, oh, I sell this coffee. And then we find out all this, I guess a significant amount of cockroaches get ground up in coffee. And I'm like, there's your React news, there's your listicle, there's absolutely everything. There's even your authority piece of how, even just kind of talking about that specifically and how it's prevented, etc. There's a million things you can do, and you become an expert for that. So am I going to buy coffee from a guy who first he teaches me that, you know, there's cockroaches in majority of coffee beans, or like fragments of them, especially the pre-ground stuff. Am I going to buy from him? Yeah, most likely, because that's going to be on my mind. Like, I haven't been able to lose that from my mind since I saw that. And I'm like, that's absolutely killer. Like, that's crack content for social media. That stuff has potential to go viral for it. Or it's just like, you know, on the listicle side, on absolutely every side. So come up with your strategy. The next video, like I said, we're going to be talking about the agent assembly line and how to actually make AI do a good job and where it requires you to be in the loop. I believe in human in the loop. We'll cover that more. There's still a little bit of human there, but like I said, instead of 3 hours, I could do a post in 15 minutes and get hundreds of thousands of views from it. So thanks for watching. Next video is right below.